Hey everybody, Dwight here from FamZoo.com. Experimenting a little bit with my first Periscope, and what I thought I'd do today, thanks for joining along, is show people what I showed at FinCon for the startup competition. I'll switch the camera around here so you can see my screen. So hopefully you can see that well. Give me some love on the hearts if you can see the screen well. Hey, FinCon15, right on. So what I thought I'd do is use this Periscope to walk through the demo that we did at the startup competition. And we only had 3 minutes there, so it was a little rushed, but I can go through a little bit more slowly here, and if people have questions, I can answer them. And what we did was we kicked it off with a little video. And the topic was basically, what's the one thing you wish you'd learned about money growing up? And so I'm going to kick off that video. We'll see if the sound works okay here. Let me know if you can hear it.
Oh, wow. There's so many things that I wish I had known, Farnoosh.
The damage you can do with credit cards.
Interest.
Life gets very expensive.
The market, stock market.
Compound interest.
Oh, to live below your means.
It can work for you.
That there's an unlimited resource to it?
I wish I'd known more about investing in stocks earlier.
Money can be compounded, and even a few dollars made when you're really young can turn into a lot of money later in life.
It's something that you need to pay attention to constantly.
So that is basically my favorite question on Farnoosh's So Money podcast. You know, what's the one thing you wish to learn about money growing up? And that's actually what FamZoo is all about. It's it's a set of these prepaid cards. Here's some examples of them. These are fake cards, so you don't have to worry about me sharing the card numbers. But they're prepaid cards that are designed for families, but they're not just one individual card. They're a collection of cards, and they're kind of like the electronic equivalent of the envelope system, you know. And so what I'll do is I'll show you my screen, and our software ties these cards together. And the goal is to make it, a good deal on a collection of prepaid cards. If you're using more than one prepaid card in your family, then you want to check it out. It's just a good deal. That's the simplest thing. B, it's a super easy way to shoot money between family members. So it's convenient. We've looked at all the typical ways that money shoots between family members, and we've sort of automated that and made that simple. And lastly, but most importantly, we put a bunch of capabilities in to make it easy to teach your kids all those money habits that were kind of just shown in that video, which hopefully you could hear. A couple hearts if you could hear that video. So most importantly, we have a whole set of features to teach kids great money habits. And so let me just quickly, awesome, thank you. I'm glad you can hear me. So let me flip it around, and I'll get the FamZoo application up on the screen. If I click on this tab, you should be able to see my family when I sign in. So everybody signs in with a family name and a family member name, and I'm signed into FamZoo as the parent. So what you can see is there are little buckets of money, and I'm trying to teach my kids, and we have a lot of kids, so sorry, it's a little bit busy, but let's zero in on Quentin here. You can see that he has separate buckets of money for spending, and I'm trying to teach all of the kids about an emergency fund. You know, I figure why wait until they're young adults to learn the concept of emergency fund? That's something they can learn as teenagers. And I have a bucket for him for high interest savings, where that savings is actually being paid by me. So I get to define the interest rate. You can see what that looks like here. If I edit the account, you can see that you can set up savings interest rates or loan interest rates. Now you're in charge. You're the parent. One of the cards in the pack of cards is special. It's called the primary funding card. And so when you set up like an interest rate for your kids, for example, that money is coming from your card. So here I'm paying him 0.16% every week to encourage him to save. And there's a little interest calculator here that we have where you can kind of come up with an interest rate. You can even put a cap on it, just so I'm paying him about the same as 8.4% annually. So it's much better than he could get in a bank, but it's not completely outrageous. And basically, I want to keep reinforcing that, one thing you should learn early is that you put your money to work for you. We also have the ability to set up loan interest if we want to teach kids that debt is painful and teach that lesson to them as early as possible. So these are all the little buckets of money that I have set up for Quentin. So spending, emergency fund, high interest savings. I'm actually trying to teach him about investing as well, and giving. And he, gets an allowance, and that is split between three of these buckets: the spending, saving, and the giving. The idea there is, hey, you basically, you want to teach your kids, early on that it's a good idea to take your income, however you're earning that, whether it's through chores or allowance or odd jobs, or as the kids get older, jobs around the neighborhood, any of those things. You want to teach them, hey, don't spend it all. Pull some out first for saving and some for giving, and then the rest can be used for spending. So that's a good habit to learn early on, and that's what we're trying to teach with FamZoo. So let's take a look at what happens when he signs in on his into his account. So typically, this is what it looks like. I'm going to back up a little bit here and show you. This is what he sees when he signs in on his mobile phone, for example. This is our mobile UI. I'm showing it to you in a browser. But he'll see just his little buckets of money, right? So he's got a spending card there, emergency fund, high interest savings, index, and giving card. And so, he can click on his, he can check his balance. Good idea to know your balance before you spend. And he can click on that balance and drill down. And here he sees all of the transactions on his card. So maybe move that just a little bit closer. And hopefully you can see that. And so, for example, here's his most recent transaction was a interest deposit from me, from the Bank of Dad. So I paid him 11 cents in interest to repeatedly encourage him each week. Hey, if you don't spend, your money is working for you. That's something I want to drill into his head. And so he's not just focusing on spending. Here, he withdrew some money to pay his friend some cash. So I, in effect, serve as the ATM. He came to me and said, Dad, I need $8 to pay back his friend Gray. And so I hand him $8 out of my wallet and I deduct it off of his card. And here you can see his allowance payment, but note that it's just 60% of his allowance. That's because 20% is going to his savings account and 20% is going to his giving card. And by the way, on his giving card, he just gave to the Red Cross because I don't know if any of you know, but we've had some horrible fires here in Northern California. And when his giving card gets up to a certain amount, we have a discussion about where he might donate. And in this case, he chose to give to the Red Cross, which I was very proud of. And so here you can see that he can use it's a MasterCard prepaid card, so he can use it on sites like Amazon.com. In this case, he bought something that. Oh, thank you. Thanks for interacting with me. I was getting a little bit lonely here. And so he can use it on Amazon.com. And in this case, he bought something for me, so I actually reimbursed him. And anytime you have your kid go out and get something for you, so maybe they get some ice cream. We need this because my kids do lots of work. I gotta adjust my thing to see it. Oh, missed it. But if for example, you have your kids go out, you say, hey, Johnny, can you go down and get some ice cream for the family? they can put it on their card, and then to reimburse it, all you have to do is click on this all the kid has to do is like click on this little arrow. He would, send the request to mom or dad, and, maybe give a reason like, oh, this was the ice cream that you sent me to get for the family, or this was the book that I had to buy for school, or any of those things. So when he, hits request, then a text message comes to the parent that was chosen, and you click on the link and you can approve or deny or partially approve. And so again, we're just trying to take all those little money movements that happen in the family and automate those. And, here he bought, I actually bought Mentos for him, so I came back and dinged him. In this case, he didn't make his bed. So FamZoo actually has integrated set of chore charts that when you tick off the chore, it either credits or debits the desired account. So in this case, my wife and I had the idea of having a chore fail chart. I mean, he's already getting allowance, and we expect him to do certain things. So, if in our case, when we check off the chore, we actually ding his card. It's kind of a clawback method, and we did this because we've got 5 kids, and we didn't really want to be checking off chores constantly. So we kind of said, well, it's a little easier just to have an allowance, and then to have what we call the chore fail chart, where if we got sufficiently irritated that they weren't picking up their clothes or making the bed and that kind of stuff, we could just sort of ding it on the card. Now, you can set up any kind of reward system you want. In fact, that's a real philosophy of FamZoo is, we're not really particular on what system you set up, but it's just important to have a system where you're communicating your values. And so we give you a whole array of tools, whether it's allowances, chore charts. You can even, when your kids are teenagers and they get a summer job, the cards actually look like a checking account to the outside world, so they can have their paycheck direct deposited to the card. So my older kids who work during the summer, for example, they work outside the home and they get their paychecks deposited. So that's another feature of the card. But that's basically the idea behind FamZoo, is to kind of give all these tools. And we can switch to the screen again. That's a near spin, a system to communicate your values. Oh, a nice spin. Thank you. No problem. Autocorrect, gotta love it. So let me switch the screen around a little bit here. And you can see that there's all kinds of things that you can set up. If I go here and click on the diagrams, for example. Oh, thank you for the love. I appreciate it. Here I'm looking at a diagram for Quentin, and I'm going to zero in on his spending card. And so you can get kind of a visual view of what's going on here. His 60% of his allowance is feeding into his spending account. And you can see that he's got the current balance there. You can see his history. Now, normally you might say, oh, that's a bummer, his balance is going down. But actually what happened here was he asked me to transfer money off of his spending card onto his savings card because he knew he was getting the really awesome interest from Dad on the savings card. So I look at this as a super good thing. He basically didn't spend all his money, decided to have me transfer it from the spending card to a savings card so he could earn more interest. And that's exactly the kind of stuff that we're trying to encourage with kids at a really young age, so it just becomes a lifelong habit. You can see at the moment I'm not paying any interest on his spending card. There's a loan interest that he would pay if he went negative. He's got a savings goal set up, so we're trying to teach kids about making specific goals. In this case, it's kind of a nerdy goal because he wants to buy a solid-state hard drive because we build computers together. And you can also see another feature that we have is this ability to have your kids share in some of the expenses. There's a lot of things that we give our kids basically for free that they have no idea that those things cost money. And in many cases, kids really have no idea how much, for example, a cell phone costs because they're on a family plan and they're not picking up the tab themselves in any way. So in FamZoo, we let you set up what we call auto debits that you can use to hit their account, like every month, for example. You can see here. So here I've set up this $10 charge every month for Quentin, so he picks up a part of the data plan and he gets the idea, hey, cell phones aren't free. So, you can go in here and edit this. You could bill them maybe for an online game or something that they're playing that's maybe on your card, although you can put it on the kid's card instead of your own. And so in this case, it's a shared expense that I'm paying, the family plan, because that's a good deal. But I want to turn around and ding him, say, $10 at the end of every month. And that way they learn, how to do bill pay and the responsibility of, hey, he's got to have at least $10 on his card at the end of the month. And so he's starting to, learn to think ahead, plan ahead, get those skills down while he's still young. He's 13. And so hopefully by the time that he, graduates from college, he'll have been through all of these different experiences. He'll know about setting money aside for saving and giving. He'll know about the power of compound interest. He'll know how to plan ahead for bills and things like that. He'll know how to set goals for savings. And, I guess he'll know that if he doesn't clean up his clothes and make his bed, that he gets dinged for it. So anyway, that's the gist of what we presented at FinCon, and thanks so much for bearing with me through my first Periscope. I'm sure I'll get better over time. But how we plan to use this is we get lots of questions from our customers about features in the product or the best way to set something up, or just questions about kids and money. And as Chris and I are both fathers, and it's not our first rodeo, so we've got at least lots of stories about what not to do, and we can share a little bit of advice about what to do as well. So if you like what you see, please follow us at FamZoo, and we also have a blog.famzoo.com that covers a lot of this information as well, and we'll see you again sometime on Periscope.